Well, there's a lot of things that she does really well, and I think there's a lot of things that make her opponents feel very uncomfortable.
Like, she represents the Philippines, which is a country with more than 100 million people, but doesn't have a lot of history in tennis. And she's really...
I wasn't able to win that same way because she started to play more aggressive, go for her shots a little bit more, so.
The moment Martina Navratilova went off on live television, the WTA should have taken notes. She wasn't vague about it. She said Melbourne Park organizers made a mistake directly on Tennis Channel, with Lindsay Davenport sitting right next to her nodding along. That was January. 3 months later, the same pattern is still playing out, and the financial damage is no longer theoretical. Alex Eala just dropped to number 45 after Miami. But before that ranking slide, Dubai told the story nobody at WTA headquarters wants to read aloud. 48% jump in ticket sales, Women's Week 2026.
Yeah, I mean, it's just otherworldly stuff from him, and you really can't be surprised.
One player drove that entire number, and that same organization turned around and scheduled her on Court 6 at the Australian Open, a mid-sized venue, while thousands of her Filipino army were physically locked outside the building with nowhere to go. That army is 2 million strong. They cross time zones, they take leave from work, they queue 6 hours outside Stadium 3 at Indian Wells before a second-round match. Tennis experts have been going off about this for months, and the evidence of what the WTA is doing to their own ticket sales by letting that crowd walk away is impossible to ignore. Subscribe if you want the full breakdown, because this one goes deep. And here is exactly how deep it goes. Because the experts who went off about this were not bloggers or social media commentators with an agenda. These were former Grand Slam champions, people who spent decades inside the professional game, who understand scheduling, court assignments, and the commercial mechanics of tournament management better than almost anyone outside a tour director's office.
Well, we just saw the greatest match ever the greatest match between the two best heads of hair ever on a tennis court.
When that caliber of voice calls out a governing body on live television, the normal institutional response is acknowledgement, adjustment, and a quiet course correction behind closed doors. The WTA offered silence. So let's establish the full picture of what happened at Melbourne Park in January, because the clips that circulated online only captured part of it. Eala arrived at the 2026 Australian Open ranked number 49 in the world. This was her first ever Grand Slam main draw appearance. Automatic entry earned through a career-defining 2025 season that had taken her from a wild card ranked 140 all the way into the top 50. The Filipino community in Melbourne, one of the largest Filipino populations in the Southern Hemisphere, had been waiting for this specific moment for months. Tournament organizers knew she was coming. They had access to her social media numbers, which were already approaching 1 million followers, more than double the count of players ranked significantly above her. They had seen the crowd footage from Dubai and Abu Dhabi just weeks before the Australian swing began. They put her on Court 6. Queues ran into the thousands before the match even began. Fans who arrived early still could not get in. Thousands were redirected to big screens outside the venue, which filled up as, well, the live stream of her post-match press conference pulled over 100,000 views, more than the press conferences of the world number 1 and one of the biggest names in men's tennis on that same day.
Being for such a young talent to have a sold-out crowd completely behind.
On a day when the Australian Open set a single-day attendance record of 101,696 spectators, the most chaotic and electrically charged scene in the entire grounds was happening on one of its smaller outside courts. The WTA did not create that energy. Eala did. But the WTA was in a position to channel it, monetize it, and scale it. And they assigned it to a venue that was structurally incapable of handling the crowd that showed up. Now here is where the commercial argument becomes impossible to dismiss. 3 weeks after Melbourne, Eala arrived in Dubai for the duty-free tennis championships. This time, tournament management gave her center court and the closing night session slot. The result was not subtle. The Women's Week of the 2026 Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships recorded a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. A senior tournament official who had worked that event for over 30 years, someone who had personally witnessed the sport's biggest names sell out that venue across multiple generations, said Eala's matches were in a category of their own. His words were direct. All her matches had packed stands. The semifinals did not come close to that level of demand. The final had a full house. But Eala's matches were what everyone actually wanted a ticket for. He said the demand on his personal phone was so intense he was afraid to check his messages. That same official drew a comparison to a trailblazing Asian player who debuted in Dubai over 20 years ago and caused the venue to overflow with fans from her home country. He said the atmosphere at Eala's matches felt identical. A stadium that had transformed into something closer to a Davis Cup tie than a regular tour event, because the crowd was not there to watch tennis in the abstract. They were there to watch their country, a 48% jump, in a single week, from a player who arrived ranked 47th. The player who won the Dubai title that same week, a world number 5, a 4-time WTA 1000 champion, someone who had just claimed one of the most prestigious titles on the women's tour, was asked about Eala at her own winner's press conference. Her response cut straight to the point. She said you could hear the crowd roaring from the on-site hotel at night. She said the way Eala had been able to pack stadiums and the way her country supported her was something special. The tournament champion, at her own celebration, was directing the conversation toward a player who had lost in the quarterfinals 4 days earlier. That does not happen in professional tennis. It barely happens in any professional sport.
Absolutely, and there's a certain stepladder that you have to go through.
And the WTA's structural response to that reality has been a series of scheduling choices that have consistently worked against the commercial engine sitting right in front of them. To understand the full scale of what is being mismanaged here, the diaspora numbers need to be on the table. More than 10 million Filipinos live or work outside the Philippines. Approximately 1.7 million of them are in California alone. In the UAE, the figure sits around 1 million overseas Filipino workers. These are not passive viewers refreshing a score on their phone at 2 a.m. They are mobile, financially committed, and culturally motivated in a way that professional sports organizations spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to manufacture through marketing campaigns and brand partnerships and failing to replicate. They book international flights to attend matches. They apply for annual leave weeks in advance. They arrived at Indian Wells 6 hours before a second-round match and waited in temperatures cold enough that they needed winter coats and blankets by the time the first ball was struck just before midnight. A fan who made the 2-hour drive from Los Angeles said he had been attending that tournament for 10 years and had never seen that many Filipinos in one place. A Filipino sports journalist framed the cultural weight of this in terms that any sports business professional should be able to translate immediately. He said the country had been hungry for the next Manny Pacquiao, that when Pacquiao was at his peak, life in the Philippines stopped. When a fight was on, nothing moved, nobody drove, everyone watched. That is the psychological infrastructure Eala has stepped into, not a tennis fan base, a national identity looking for a vessel, and finding one in a 20-year-old left-hander from Quezon City who moved to Spain at 13 to train at a tennis academy and came back to the world stage carrying an entire country with her. A tennis expert who has closely followed the Filipino sporting scene noted that Eala is already being treated like a multiple Grand Slam winner, and she has not won a Grand Slam. She has not won a WTA 1000 title. She is 20 years old and currently ranked number 45 after a points correction following Miami. The level of devotion attached to her current resume is not proportional by any conventional sporting metric, and that disproportionality is exactly where the commercial opportunity lives. Any organization that cannot convert that into revenue at scale is not paying attention to its own data. Now, the scheduling contradiction that has still not been resolved because it goes beyond just the wrong court at Melbourne. In Dubai's quarterfinals, after placing Eala in the closing night session slot for both the second and third rounds, the WTA moved her to open the evening session instead. A former world number 3 and 4-time WTA 1000 champion was scheduled to follow her. The consequence was entirely predictable before a single ball was struck. Filipino fans watching from home were already navigating a time difference that put the match starting around midnight local time. Moving Eala to open the session meant millions of viewers were tuned in from the very first match of the evening. which is, in isolation, the correct outcome if the goal is audience size. The problem is that those same viewers had no structural reason to keep watching after her match ended. A legitimately accomplished player with a compelling career story was placed in the position of performing in front of a stadium that was actively emptying itself. The smarter move was already on the table. Place the other match first. Filipino fans, already awake and watching,
I think it was Eala is the match that I was looking at, and there was people like wrapped around the stadium just trying to get in, which is pretty crazy.
catch a competitive contest between two quality players before their player even takes the court. Some of them develop an interest. Some of them start following those names. The WTA gains traction for multiple players within a single evening session, inside a market of over 10 million people who are already proven ticket buyers. Instead, the scheduling handed the Filipino audience a clean exit point at exactly the moment their investment in the evening was satisfied, and gave them every logical reason to take it. This is the argument that the scheduling is complicated defense simply cannot address. The WTA is not just failing to maximize Eala's individual commercial value. The inconsistency of her placement, closing sessions one round, opening them the next, court 6 at a Grand Slam, center court 3 weeks later, is actively costing other players their shot at the most commercially engaged new audience women's tennis has encountered in years. The Indian Wells data confirmed that Dubai was not a one-tournament anomaly. A senior executive at the BNP Paribas Open went on record saying the tournament loved every minute of the Eala effect, that they benefited from it, and that they actively promoted it. A video the tournament posted featuring Eala became its most watched content of the entire 2026 event, and it was not close. Indian Wells placed her in its Class of 2026 promotional campaign, alongside 7 top 10 players, because the tournament's marketing team understood something clearly. Her presence does not just fill seats for her own matches, it elevates the commercial value of the entire event around her. Her second-round match that week ran for 2 hours and 43 minutes, the longest match of the day. It finished just before midnight. The fans who had queued 6 hours earlier were still there, in the cold, at the end of it. After the match, Eala addressed them directly. She said the effort they made, staying late, staying in the cold, added to everything she felt on the court. That is the army the title describes, not a social media following, not a viewership metric that disappears the moment a stream ends. A group of people that treats a second-round WTA 1000 match with the emotional investment of a Grand Slam final, and allocates their money accordingly. Tennis experts have been pointing at this for months. Tournament executives have confirmed it on the record. The 48% ticket sales figure from Dubai is documented and published. The crowd footage from Melbourne, Indian Wells, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Auckland exists. Eala herself has spoken about the window with a self-awareness that makes the WTA's passivity harder to understand the longer it continues. Earlier this year, on a widely followed tennis podcast, she said the people were really coming.
So I think those back and forths were really intense for me, and I'm happy that I was able to get some of them.
That they were buying tickets, taking time out of their day, showing up every week. She said she did not know how long it would last. She said it was definitely not going to be forever, and she said she was trying to enjoy it while it was happening. She is 20 years old, and she already understands the commercial and cultural window she is operating inside. The WTA has watched this exact dynamic play out before. When a Chinese player broke through and won a major title over a decade ago, an entirely new commercial market opened up for the tour in Asia, a shift that permanently altered the organization's financial footprint in one of the world's most populous regions. Eala's rise is presenting a structurally identical opportunity in Southeast Asia and across a global diaspora that has already demonstrated repeatedly and with receipts that it will show up and spend money at every stop on the calendar.
Well, she's using
The response so far has included Court 6 at Melbourne Park, a quarterfinal scheduling flip in Dubai that emptied a stadium on cue, and a pattern of inconsistency that tennis experts have called out publicly with increasing frustration. At some point, the gap between what Eala's 2 million-strong Filipino army is generating and what the WTA is actually converting stops being a missed opportunity and becomes a deliberate indifference to their own bottom line. The clay season starts at Linz in less than a week. Madrid follows, then Roland Garros. The WTA has another full swing of events to demonstrate that the feedback has landed, or to keep letting one of the most commercially significant fan bases women's tennis has seen in a generation walk away from venues that were never designed to hold them. If this breakdown gave you a perspective you have not seen framed this way anywhere else, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the clay season storylines around Eala are getting bigger, not smaller, and this channel covers the side of tennis that the official communications departments would rather leave undiscussed. Share this with the tennis fan who still thinks the WTA always gets the big calls right. The evidence in this video says otherwise, and the conversation is worth having.